Well, we're live now. Hello.
Oh my gosh.
Hold on. Let me
Hi,
check.
Jouelzy.
I don't know if I don't have sound
Oh, it's
audio.
probably me. I hear you, so maybe it's me. Hold up. Let's see.
Hello.
Yes. Can you hear me? I tested this too. Oh, I know.
We're gonna give Samantha a minute or so. You're on mute? No, your sound is on. All right, I'm gonna give Samantha a minute to get herself on. You know, I be having my little technical difficulties myself, but oh man, let's just go ahead and play our little intro. Okay. It might be. Okay. Let. Oh, it's. I think it's me. Hello. No, I don't hear nothing. Is it my computer? It's fine. It might be my computer, but hi Abby, how you doing? I don't. You know what? Yeah, when I talk, there's a green. So when you say something, there should be a green bar on the side that shows if it's picking up sound or not. But if you go into your settings, okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get into this. So, we are doing Fevered Star, which is the book we've been reading for September and October. And Samantha, who's trying to figure out her mic situation, is the one who did the syllabus for. So, we actually broke this into two parts because it's not that this is like an actual long read. It looks like a very big book. It feels like a very big book, but it actually reads like a movie. And this is a very, very, I would say, as the second part of the trilogy, I thought reading Black Sun was a little quicker, but this isn't hard to get through either. But we did make this decision to break the syllabi into two, just so it was a little bit easier. And they're both on sale, I believe, for $3.99 is the price, or $4.99 is the price on the website. Can people hear me? I don't know if anybody's really watching, but hold on. Let's see if we can get Samantha back in here.
Testing.
Okay, we can hear you. It's working. Yay, you're here. And I love the shirt, even though we can't really see it.
Oh my gosh.
You got the Ida B. Wells shirt. Is that what we sent? Is that the shirt we sent you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love this shirt.
Our first holiday season, we sent the cohort shirts, but everybody got a different shirt.
Yeah.
Everybody got a different version of the shirt. So, okay, I was just explaining that you did this wonderful. We will. Ooh, no, I did. I wanted to share my screen. Hold on. You did the syllabi for Fevered Star, and you also did it for Black Sun.
Yes.
Last. So you are 2 for 2 here with Rebecca Roanhorse. Samantha is like our resident Afrofuturism sci-fi.
Oh, I love it.
Team member. She's trying to get us into N.K. Jemisin. I think we just haven't read it because of me.
It's all right.
Because of me. I'm like, these books, they look so big when you like go to like consider the book, and it's like, okay, they read pretty easily, but it's very daunting to think that I'm going to read like a 500 page book. Not that Rebecca Roanhorse is right at 380, but I think one of the N.K. Jemisin books we were discussing was like 500 pages, and I was just like, oh girl.
Yeah, but it's like with fantasy, it goes by so fast because you just get, like when I was reading the Harry Potter books, it was done. The Twilight series books, it was done. It's just you just get through it real fast.
You know,
So
somebody brought me the Game of Thrones book set, and it's been collecting dust because I'm like, I can't. I'm scared.
that's when I can't read, because actually from the get go, there's like 5 different names on the first page, and I was already like,
So I've been doing the audio book version. I'm currently on chapter 21, so I'm close. I feel like I'm close to the end.
okay.
Wait, how many chapters are there? I should know because I delegated all the the live discussions. Chapter 22. Okay. I got like, maybe I'm not that close to the end. But I feel like we're picking up steam because the first part of the book, especially this chapter 1 through 7, we are kind of picking up at the end of Black Sun.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
we read Black Sun, what has it been, 2 years now or a year?
It was, I think,
We read
about 2 years now, because we're almost at the end of this year, but yeah.
When we read Black Sun, there was a lot of discussion around Narampa, who in Black Sun was about to ascend to the, what was the position called? Not sun god, not sun priest. Yeah, sun priest.
Mm-hmm.
And her being a very naive character and almost unlikable to a certain extent. And now she is, I mean, she was definitely a central character in Black Sun, but I think it was, you know, she kind of annoyed a lot of the readers. A lot of people found her to be not entirely likable, a bit self-righteous and quite naive character. And in this book, it's like, oh, okay, there's a lot more expansion of Narampa's, you know, childhood family life, and of what her role is going to be in, you know, the overall narrative of this, what is to be a trilogy. I'm really excited to see Black Sun like on the screen, like see it come together as a movie.
Oh yes, I am as well. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Period.
All right, let's get into this syllabus singular. Always have to remind myself. You know, as we want to remind everyone, I know some people are still trying to rush through Black Sun. Don't worry, we're not really going to have any spoilers because 1 through 7 doesn't really. I mean, I guess a spoiler is, does Serapio live? Does Narampa live? But I guess I kind of already gave that spoiler away because clearly they both alive. They both is breathing.
Yeah, their main character energy.
Yes. You know, we give at the beginning of the syllabus, we do an objective that provides the breakdown, because there is a lot of discussion once you get into the book of the different areas of the landscape of Tova, Koyakola, Hokkaiya, and Teak territory, and then the various events and historical moments that they reference. Tons of themes in this book, but okay, let's get into your first question from chapter 1. You pull the quote from page 4. Do you have the syllabus open too? Okay.
Yes, I do.
You printed yours. I would say not you printed the syllabus out.
No.
Old superstition, he said before spitting on the floor. A sucker's endeavor. Something in the feeble-minded. I'll stay in the light of reason, thanks. He touched his fingers to a pendant around his neck, a small golden replica of the sun. In what ways does the religious intolerance of the ancient dream walkers, the extified Teak, and the feared Odohe in the Meridian result in the oppression of the practitioners of forbidden magic? Actually, let me put this on the screen because some of these words, I know I am the queen of mispronunciation, but because I've been listening to the audiobook, I'm like, oh, okay, I know it's Odohe.
Oh, okay.
That's
Maybe I need to listen to the audiobook.
That's how they pronounce it in the audiobook. Okay, so here's where we're um put it back on the screen for the quote we're referencing. Okay. And who is saying this quote on page 4? Sorry, I started reading the print. Is it Balam? Balam
So,
was a very fine character in Black Sun, and now he's just
mhm.
Mr. Creepy.
He kind of gave me the creep vibes even in Black Sun, because he was the Lord of Shala, if I'm saying her name right. How did they say it in the audiobook?
Lord of
I don't,
Shiala?
yeah,
Shiala.
Tiala, yeah. Because he was the one who put her on the boat.
Yeah, but he was like, was he? Because there was one guy who like had this like a lord that was like fat and had a big pot belly and was
Yeah.
very awesome. And then there was Balaam, who was described as like very much so a capitalist, very much
Yes.
so,
Maybe that was it.
not. Yeah, but like
Yeah.
he was described as like a dark, fine man.
Yes, yes.
Some of us are willing to give up on our morals. Okay, but I wanted to put the syllabus on the screen because oh, you can't see my mouse, but in the question it says, in what ways does the religious intolerance of the ancient dream walkers, what does this word mean? Extofied? Teak?
Exotified?
Okay, we misspelled that. Exotified.
Oops.
Teak. Yeah, we know what we do all these checks and some things still
Yeah,
make
it
it out.
still went. Oh my goodness.
We've been having a time with Samantha on this. Because we do several checks. It's like, but our designer, shout out to Rita, is Portuguese. So they're not gonna catch. We actually had a meeting the other day and she was like, she has to read some of these books and it's interesting because it's definitely improved her English. I'm like,
Right.
it's very funny. Okay, so the exotified teak and the feared, so this word here, the feared odohe in the
Hmm.
meridian result in the oppression of the practitioners of forbidden magic. I think it's so interesting in this book because the forbidden magic was kind of like a footnote in Black Sun. And we get a much better sort of explanation of both like the history and the people that are now invested in it.
Yeah.
And even though I kind of get the sense that, the people that are into the old magic
Hmm.
are people that want to exploit it, which is why it was originally banned in the first place.
Yeah.
But
True.
I also think that like trying to blight it out, I believe in religious freedom. I don't know if
Hmm.
I believe in the religious freedom of you getting to crawl into my mind and manipulate me.
Right. Right. Yes. It was very much an instrument of war.
Yeah.
Without spoiling anything. Okay, maybe I spoiled a little bit already. Okay, but it was dangerous. It was dangerous. But in a lot of ways, I kind of wonder too, because it seems like it's. I was struggling with this question, these questions of what was and what isn't imperialistic or colonialism for the Sun Priest as having dominion over the Meridian, because, or at least the clans, because I was thinking about it and I was like, well, it's the ancestral religion. It's always going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was almost like, even though they could try to quell it, it would always kind of have the remnants of it existing. So you can't necessarily uh, get rid of it forever, because the way that the power is described is that it's kind of a something that exists within the realm of the world. It's like it's intertwined with, just I guess, even the whole history of the clans. So I can't really, I don't know. I was having a hard time thinking about what is and isn't really imperialistic, because how can I say that it's an instrument of war if the inherent part of their kind of cultural system?
And I guess it kind of also challenges just our beliefs in general of
Hmm.
what, even outside of those of us that exist outside of indigenous communities, that when we look back at like our ethnic ancestors and we tend to want to portray them like in this pure sense, like this
Mm-hmm.
elevated status of purity that they maybe it's not imperialism. I don't know. We are who are we to say what it was, but obviously it was used as a defense of a community, of a group that
Yes.
was having to fight for their place on a piece of land. And
Yes.
that complicates things. That there is a very complicated history to just surviving amongst, like, in a nation, right? Essentially, to surviving on land. It's not like people like just picked a piece of land in whatever continent and were able to stay there with nobody bothering them. Like, you
Yeah.
know, there's always a sort of power dynamic that I think is just innate to, the human nature. But on page 14 of the syllabus, you do ask, how does the indoctrination of the people in the meridian into the worship of the sun god act as an instrument of colonization for those followers of suppressed beliefs?
Yes.
I get the sense, when I was going over the syllabus, that you, both for Black Sun and Fevered Star, that you read this and just saw so many connections to the sort of systems of oppression that exist today,
Right.
right? That colonization, imperialism, capitalism are seen through an indigenous lens, but they also then
Yes.
connect to the way we are living in modern day America.
Yes. I saw a lot of the native plight in the story.
Hmm.
And honestly, even when I was thinking about colonialism, it's even hard for me. I actually think Roanhorse does a really good job at creating a fantasy world that kind of exists outside of colonialism. So that question's kind of a trick question because it depends on if you believe that the system is it has colonialism.
I think the Watchers were kind of
You think so?
not colonists, but they were. I don't know. Okay, this is where I'm left off at, right? I think this reminds me a lot of when you think about societies that have successfully been dismantled
Yeah.
and what could come. So, like, you go back to like a Haitian revolution, right?
Yeah.
And you think about like the success of the Haitian revolution.
Hmm.
And what were the people or the various players in that revolution? How were they thinking about what would replace the system that they were dismantling? And oftentimes in most revolutions, even like the French Revolution, you see this kind of discussion come about that, oh, intellectuals should be the ones to oversee society. That if you allow in the, I mean, not in the French Revolution so much, but there is kind of this thread about, is it worthwhile to
Hmm.
allow like a true democracy where everyone has a role in this vote, or does that not just slow things down, make a
I see
messy?
what you're saying. I
And
get
I
what you're
think
saying.
the Watchers are kind of like that byproduct of like this idyllic frame of, we are going to let a elite group of people who
Hmm.
aren't, they kind of castrate themselves as not outwardly invested in the elitism, but they are an elite group of people that every other community pays a tax to, and then they set the rules. They kind of hold dominion over all these other groups
Hmm.
within that surround Tova.
I think you know what that's very true because with the French Revolution, you had the petite bourgeoisie that were kind of under the actual monarchs, and I feel like it was all really for maybe good intentions, but of course that system was still in place so that when the monarchs were dismantled, that system still allowed that continuation of that colonialism to continue. So yeah, maybe even within the system that exists, they implemented a system that's similar, if not colonialist, and therefore it did kind of act or serve as that. So yeah, I can totally see that. It also kind of ties into, I don't want to put too much of my, ideology onto the native people because from what I've read, natives still had very distinct identities even among each other, especially within Mesoamerica. Ancient Mesoamerica, people still distinguished themselves from one another. So it wasn't like everyone had this kind of ideology that, oh, we're all Mayans. They were still distinct ethnic groups even then. So yeah, you could still say that this is a a an invader of some kind, right? Coming in and yeah, basically exploiting these people for whatever gain. So
I
yeah, I
mean,
totally agree.
I just think, to like, what is it? Then you get in, if we get into all these theories of, I don't know. I think we were talking about this the other night when we were discussing how we get free of like Marxism, but like that school of thought, Engels. I
Mm-hmm.
say this man's last name and don't never remember his full name. Engles. Frederick Engels. Was he the man that was like pro anarchy? There was a discussion within the world of Marx, of Karl Marx, with other thought leaders who kind of push back against this idea of socialism, and that they believe that a structure of people should be anarchy, in like kind of anti-structuralist, essentially, because any sort of structure will always create a power dynamic. There will
Yeah.
always out of that structure create a person or people who come to the top and then in some way or fashion are exploiting the lower class. Even when you think of like Narampa, and we get a much broader later in the
Mm-hmm.
a much better understanding of the Coyote Mao and how that community came to be versus the other communities that were a part of that are under the control of the Watchers. Um, but Narampa came to the tower or to the Meridian as a servant,
Yes.
as a child. You know what I mean? Like essentially doing labor. Like that is in essence exploitative.
Yes. Very true. And every previous sun priest before her was a man of a certain
Age.
background and
Yeah.
age.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. They were from a
Yeah.
certain right. And because she came from Coyote Mao, the idea was that she was supposed to remain a servant or in servitude in whatever area of life she went into. And there was resentment, which kind of aids into what happens the day of the arrival of the crow god.
Yeah. Yeah. I forget if it's is it the conclave or the shuddering? There's all these different terms for the day that
The
happened.
conclave to me is Omega Psi-Phi, a bunch of Qs coming to the cities, and I don't remember was it the convergence?
The convergence. Yeah, 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 yeah. Because that happened, I think, on the day of the
Yeah.
convergence. So yeah.
Because each chapter starts off as like one day since things are crossed off. Oh, because they passed away.
Yeah.
I didn't realize. I mean, if you get the physical copy of the book, I don't know. I wonder, is there like I have to look and see if there's like documentation that comes on my because I use Audible, or if you do it on Libby, there might be like supplemental, because the book, and as well, if you don't have access on audio file, we include a lot of this in the syllabus as well, but the book itself also like maps out where everyone's from, what ethnic group, what tribe they're from, the
Hmm.
Sky Maid clans. I think it's so funny that Oh My Skies it's like
Yeah.
the saying that it's a kind of like a curse, like, oh fuck,
Yeah.
Hokkaido. Yeah.
It is in the syllabus because they didn't. I don't think they listed events in the book, but they're mentioned throughout. So that's why I made sure to include them. So conclave, shuddering, convergence, night of knives, god war, and treaty of Hokea is in the syllabus.
Hokkaido. Hokkaido.
Hokaiya.
These, and like now that I'm looking at the spelling, I'm like, there is no way I would have read the physical copy of this book and knew how to pronounce like 80% of it,
Right.
because it sounds so different, like Denaochi. um,
I so it is G.
yeah,
Okay, I was pronouncing that one right. I was like,
yeah.
some of
So
them I was
that
like, oh,
one
I get
is
that one.
Narampa's
Yeah.
brother. Some
Yep.
of these names I don't even recognize because they're pronounced so differently. Um,
It's also
yeah,
because she doesn't use any like accent marks or anything like that, so it kind of just is harder to read. Like in certain languages, when you see the two A's, then it is a long pronunciation. Like the han, but you
mhm.
see another A, so it'd be like han. But I could be pronouncing that wrong.
The character I still have the hardest time with is Iktan.
Iktan.
Zer,
Okay.
Sir.
Yeah. Zer.
Oh man, I want
Yeah.
to see this character in like the physical form,
Mm-hmm.
so I
Mm-hmm.
can see how like this kind of three spirit character works as a physical representation, because
Yes.
in the book it's literally like each form is its own person,
Mm-hmm.
but like somehow conjoined, but still individual.
Yeah.
So like I'm like I can't I don't know, maybe my imagination is slightly, this is the second book, second time reading about this character, and I'm still kind of thrown every time they enter into the scene. And they
Yeah.
are a pivotal character again in Fevered Star.
It would be very interesting, especially if they were, to adapt this to the screen. Who would they cast? There's very few people who I think could actually embody this role, but I imagine Iktan to be tall. I imagine Iktan to be wiry. So, like, kind of like built to be stealthy, but also could probably, fight you.
Mm-hmm.
And also not pretty, not too pretty. That's kind of what I imagine.
Yeah. Okay, so you have a question in here on page 16 where you say, how did the coup d'etat of the Sun Priest reveal the celestial tower for a puppet state, or as a puppet state, especially considering Balaam, these names have not reappeared in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Pade and Poage had trained up Serapio to eventually dismantle the regime. Also referred to a later chapter about how the sun god was started after the Treaty of Hokaia.
Yes.
You say the celestial tower was revealed to be a puppet state.
Yes.
So you think the Watchers and the sun god essentially. Well, that would, I mean, now I have a question about later in the book and I have to save it. Or maybe I can ask it. Is Narampa a part of that puppet state, or is Narampa like the first representation of a true sun priest?
And what I like about this story is there's like transition. So you're like you feel like it's all happening in the moment, like you're watching history unfold.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that because she was essentially a part of this puppet state. She just didn't know it. And
Mm-hmm.
then, when she does, I guess, discover she didn't die. She was supposed to die in the first book. She didn't die. And then she finds out incrementally that she was being essentially used. That there were people. I mean, I don't think at this point she knows all of the different, facets of what really happened. She didn't, really find all that out yet. But definitely her finding out that she was going to be displaced and she was supposed to be killed actually was her moment of understanding that this role was always a farce. And later on, I don't want to spoil too much, but she kind of understands that a little bit more later too. Which,
Yeah, I think my question, like, because I'm thinking, like, how does she? Well, I guess part of her accessing the power of her role comes
Mhm.
from learning about the old magic that was banished,
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
that, maybe this at this point in the book, the old magic is referred to in purely negative sense. But I
Hmm.
think when we get later into the book with the Narampa character in particular, it is kind of alluded to that this magic also has good. But I wonder, for the members in the book club who read both books, how much of their opinion of Narampa is still tainted from her naivety that was expressed in Black Sun.
Yeah, and it comes out every now and then. Her classist, elitist thoughts. So I definitely, it's interesting because I definitely feel like there's another element when it comes to Balaam, I think, or Balaam. I don't,
Alam.
Balaam. So from the
And that too, that give me a nigga from Philly name. Maybe that's
yeah,
why I think
yeah,
Balaam is in Texas. Maybe that's why I'm feeling it, because it's like Balaam. Like I know that
yeah.
man. I know that man. You know what I mean? Like I know him.
Hmm. Yes. So Balaam, even in the first book, there is a suggestion that they're, concocting a plan, and that was to, basically put something in there that would disrupt that so that they could take over, right? That it's all throughout Black Sun, and it's even in the beginning in the very first chapter of Fevered Star. So it is a puppet state. It was a new system that was created to replace an old one, and it was, again, structurally, it couldn't stifle what was inherently a part of their culture, which is this ancient magic.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
it's
really
definitely
like this question you have on page 16 about if, in our opinion, does identity politics thwart the overall good cause behind a movement? I
I
think
swear.
you be trying to shade. I think both this and Black Sun Syllabus, you was trying to shade BLM. Apropos, you have every right, but I feel like you definitely extrapolated some points in all the syllabi that related to the failings of BLM as a
Was
nonprofit.
I being shady?
You just might have opened the
I
umbrella
plead
a
the
little
fifth.
bit, threw it back at her.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? I didn't want to come off too strong though. So I still left it open for people to, have to interpret themselves. That's why I wanted to keep all the data in there. Because I didn't want to just spoon feed people that kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a little ode, a little, a little
Just a
ode.
little. That was a hard.
Just
That was a hard. Okay. Maud is saying that they like Narampa's transition because she had to remove all the intellectual dishonesty and find freedom in the tribal mysticism that was aboard. Yeah, I think that is exactly it. It's kind of hard just to talk about the first 7 chapters because Narampa going back to the Celestial Towers happens in what will be we'll discuss that more in our third live
yeah.
discussion for the book. But
Yes.
I'm enjoying the way her story and the way she is being put in very, very, very critical moments where she has to you just want to shake the shit out of her. Like, believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. Like, get it together. You know what I mean? Like, you want to just knock upside the head.
Yeah.
She's getting more than knocked upside the head though. This is kind of violent.
And it's interesting because I think later on there's some questions about imposter syndrome and how it looks for each of those characters, Narampa, Shala, even Serapio. They all have those moments where you just want to just
Yeah.
just shake them. So
Okay, you have a long quote. Would you like to read it at the top of page 18 in the syllabus?
sure. Page 18. But there was one condition his creator had not foreseen, something his mother had not anticipated, an occurrence for which his tutors had not planned. Serapio had made the small crows his friends. He had loved them and protected them, and in the moment of his death, those friends came to him with mutual love and monumental will and sacrificed themselves so that he might live. The southern sorcerers should have known the power of a sacrifice given with love, as such a sacrifice from his mother had been what tied the boy to her god so long ago. But perhaps they could not fathom that such small beings as crows were capable of so much love, and that a man whose deeds were as dark as his would deserve it. I had to quote that whole thing because that's beautiful writing.
Oh no, Rebecca Roundhorse definitely.
That was
That's
beautiful.
why I'm like, I know this looks like a daunting book, especially because we really do want to encourage people to go back and read Black Sun and pick up Fever Star. And even after this month, you can come back. Y'all can do we need to probably work out some programming where we can allow people to do self-run, live discussions amongst people that are currently reading a book we've read in the past. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just so well written.
Yes.
I'm really excited to see this as a movie because it is already kind of written in such a cinematic way and
Mm-hmm.
not with all this filler. It's not you read books and you feel like, okay, girl, you are setting up the scene a little too
Mm-hmm.
much. I don't need all this background knowledge. But
Yeah.
it's just really, really well done. And I really love the subtleness of how love and connection are woven into what are essentially very dark and murderous characters.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Even between Ziala and Serapio, before Narampa and Dona, her brother. I done forgot the man name already. Uh, yeah, Dona Ochi.
Yeah, Denouchi.
Dona
But
Ochi.
I think it's also really interesting that if you were to adapt this to screen, there's no reason to put a single white person in this movie.
Oh, they'll
Hollywood.
find a way. They'll find a
Oh,
way.
you think
They will
some
find.
foreigners visiting?
It'll be the person will at least be half white.
Oh, that
We're gonna at
that's
least get
that's
that.
true. That's
We're
gonna
gonna at least
happen.
we're gonna at
Yeah.
least get that. You also managed to quote a little bell hooks, and you said, "As long as we refuse to address fully the place of love and struggle, liberation, we will not be able to create a culture of conversion where there's a mass turning away from an ethic of domination. Is that from All About Love?
Yeah.
That's
No,
from like chapter
I think I got this from her essay actually.
ethic. I feel like it's something that I've read.
Okay.
Because I think reading Bell Hooks definitely put me onto this idea that like we are trained as a society to seek uh power, punishment, and domination.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that can then see, even when we're talking about liberation and we believe that we have a liberation politic, that sort of desire for power, domination, and punishment will seep into our politic no matter how radical we think our politic actually is.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes.
So you think there's space for Serapio to embody Hook's concept of radical love in his relationships, namely with his mother, his crows, and his estranged community and Shiala?
I honestly do. This is the thing, like the ending that people love, there's so much media now that emphasizes this kind of like destruction at the end. Like if you look at Game of Thrones, constant destruction, and it's never ending. Even like in Lord of the Rings and all these other series where there's just this ending of destruction. I personally, I don't think that's the route. I don't want to spoil it again. Once you get to the end, you're gonna probably see the direction that she'll go in the third book. Because as much as it would make such a thrilling end to have Serapio go berserk and just off everybody, I really don't think that that's what he's going to. I mean, there might be a war, of course. There will be a war, but I think there's space to have him reintegrate into his culture and his society in a way that's still interesting and dynamic without being boring. Because she's a great writer, she can make it happen, and I want to
Mhm.
believe that writers don't always have to resort to, you know, all this, dark stuff that is sometimes overplayed in the media to have people interested. I don't think she's going to do that. She's
Would you
already kind of
is
doing this.
is it like, so how do we distinguish between like radical love and like identity politics? Like, may, do the carrion crows, do the Odahe or the whatever the sect within the carrion crows, do they just have like such a radical love for their people that that's what motivates their commitment to like this sort of unknown thing?
This is what's interesting is I don't think that's what she's saying in the book, because the
Yeah.
Odohe don't have that. But the thing is, Narampa is the character that embodies that radical love, and it's also Serapio, even though he's caused so much destruction, who actually can become a beacon of that. And I think that's like throughout. That's something she's really keen on in her writing, is this kind of unraveling and this transition of the characters. It's very subtle and it's very brilliant in how she kind of reveals what you would contradictorily believe in a way that is radical in itself. So like the fact that Sarabia has the relationship with the crows is like, that's why I wanted to quote that whole thing, because that's an entire paragraph dedicated to radical love. Like she's talking about the relationship between him and the crows, the most measly beings, right? And when you really think about society and how it's structurally set, it's always those minutiae of people that are overlooked. And it's the people who are seeking dominion that are highlighted. And that's kind of why radical love isn't esteemed, in my opinion, is because we seek to, again, seek that power, dominion, and subjugation in those higher powers. When you look at the minutiae of those relationships, that's how radical love is fostered. And that's what I think she's really, really capitalizing on in her writing, and she's brilliant for it.
Yeah.
It's not going to be what we think it's going to be in the end. That's all I know. I do expect her to give us a little some different.
So, do you believe Serapio was justified in killing the Watchers?
Was he
Do
just
the readers?
you
That's my
can't do
question.
that. You can't
Is
flip the
it
question
not
I wrote on me.
restorative? And what restorative justice would redeem his action?
Oh my goodness. That's a good question.
And honestly though, when you consider the Knight of Knives,
Yeah.
and then when we find out later in the book why certain characters have also like their deaths have come about, like at what point do we just like, is it, are like debts just absolved because the implementation of the Watchers required a great loss and a great suffering.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Very
I don't
good
know.
point. He was not justified, but the thing is, he was bred to do it. His whole existence was on that contingent of killing. So that's why I don't think that he was justified in his action, but it was ultimately something he was programmed to believe was righteous. And that's why I think that's what she brings up, this kind of radical love thing, in that it's not something that we are, and as we exist in a system of imperialism and colonialism, bred to believe in. We're bred to believe that there should be constant war and fighting, and that is kind of what his reality was. So it's
Mm,
interesting though, because on his end it was his mother and everyone who he had kind of kin ties to that bred him to do that. That's kind of the destruction of our own communities, acting in conjunction with
mhm.
colonialism and imperialism. So yeah, I definitely don't think he's justified, but it's understandable why he did it, because he believed he was doing the right thing, as he was bred to do it.
Yeah, like it all came together. All right, I want to skip way ahead because I think we've kind of overlapping addressed
Yeah, yeah.
all the notes and skip ahead to chapter 5 and when we see Giala's. Why I've done this now? I'm insecure about saying this lady name, Shiala. When we Shiala reappears, and you pull the quote from page 44. You don't need to explain, Shiala understood. They had crossed the line from friends to lovers, but Shiala's heart belonged to someone else, and Ayeshe was sensible enough to end things before either of them became too entangled to get hurt. In Shiala's defense, when they did what they did, she had thought Serapio was dead.
Ugh, the word entangled.
Then you get academic with us. In biological anthropology, and I'm on page 28 of the syllabus. In biological anthropology, the concept of risk perception states
Mm-hmm.
that our perceived susceptibility to danger affects choices in health behavior. For example, wealthy white men are more likely than any other group to support nuclear power, and those with shorter life expectancies are more likely to reproduce at a younger age.
Yes, I did go a little academic there, but I really wanted to mention that because that changed my whole understanding of relationships when I learned that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it risk perception is that it's something that we subconsciously do too. People will say like, "Oh, why does NBA YoungBoy have 16 kids with 1,200 different women, whatever, like he got a whole bunch of baby mamas now, right? That the young rapper." And it's something that, again, is very common for people who grow up in lower socioeconomic backgrounds, and especially in environments where there's a lot of violence in. So yeah, I wanted to mention that because when we think about uh Shala's background and everything that she went through. I mean, there was plenty of mention of it in Black Sun, right? She
Mhm.
was in jail. She was kind of a transient nomadic person with no real relations, constantly being, in a multitude of precarious situations where her life was at stake. So when I think of it, I always kind of, I think that if you had a character like her and you didn't actually explore the trauma that she was experiencing, and even I guess Aisha is kind of not the most important character, but in those interactions with the other characters that she meets besides Serapio, right, I don't think you would be exploring the trauma that she faced thoroughly, which is why she's such a great writer, because she knows that she needs to explore Shala's trauma and what she endured through even just the subtlest interaction, right, with Aisha or Aishi.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I want to mention that because it kind of adds another layer. We could talk on a shallow level about like, oh, this person has done this and why are they out here, with, and that kind of causes us to reduce people to stereotypes, or to kind of just thinking about things in this very offensive way, where you could easily say Shala is hoeing. Like you could say that, but that's not really
But
what's
she's
happening.
not. I think it's right because that's why you pulled out that biological anthropology that
Yeah.
she is at a position, and yeah, it is also very easy to kind of shame
Yes,
Shyala
you could shame her easily, but when you
for
think of it this
her
way, then
environment.
yeah, I didn't want people to just think, oh, she's just in these relationships.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah,
But even just her participation in the convergence, and you know the long journey she took in her protection of Serapio, essentially, within that journey after being expelled from her own homeland. And then we constantly get references throughout the book to like her need as a teak person to be in water, and how long she's been removed from the water, and how that literally wears on her being. And so yeah, she is literally making decisions out of her perception of like her harm perception, essentially. Like,
yes,
what is going on? I think that was a really great point. If Shiala were a man, do you think she would have had to exploit her sexuality to achieve her goals?
oh,
But I think Balaam exploits his sexuality. But I think there's a different power that men kind of possess in that than women have access to.
yeah,
Because I do feel like there are male characters in the book who sort of exploit their desirability.
yes, I agree. And the thing is,
Now,
it never said Shala was good looking. It just
yeah,
said she had teak eyes, and just because you got
and
teak
purple
eyes
hair.
and purple hair, are you really? They're more enamored by her exotic features. It's not that she's necessarily like a desirable person. I mean, let's be honest, but she kind of, I don't think she would have had to resort to that because when it came to actually seeking shelter on that ship with Serapio and the consequent relationship between her and Aisha, there was more of a survival mechanism, in my opinion, so that she didn't just get again kicked off and have to transition back to who knows where.
Yeah.
I just feel like she did it because she wanted to be a part of what was already there. I don't really think that and the way that Balaam or he kind
Balaam.
of Balaam isn't really, he isn't doing it for that purpose. He's doing it really to manipulate, and that is the difference I think inherently between male and female sexual kind of exploitation,
Yeah.
is that it's used for uh, survival for a lot of women, whereas men, they can do it for primarily for gain.
I mean, at the beginning of the book, Shiala is definitely fucking for housing.
True, that's what I'm saying. Okay, I have to put it scientifically though. I didn't want to just say.
Yeah, you didn't want to be, but she was
Yeah,
being a lesbian.
yeah. I could have easily just said Shala's hoeing, because of the
For
trauma. But I
housing.
wanted to put some deeper language.
No. Oh no! I
Yeah,
really like her character though. I like the
yeah.
complexities of her character. I'm really excited to see where she goes. I actually want to skip ahead to we're about at the end of this discussion, but to page 34 in the syllabus, just because
Okay.
we finally get to Carrion Crowland. But also, I want to know how you would read these names in the second question on this page.
Okay.
How analyze?
Okoa.
Yeah.
So I'm reading it Okoa, and then Isa. And that's all the names. Carrion Crow, Odosedo.
Okay, so analyze what Okoa's duty looks like in relation to Essa, Carrion Crow, and the Adosado. That's how it's pronounced.
Oh, Essa Odosedo.
The Adosado.
Okay. Odosedo.
I might be misplacing the syllabus, the Adosado. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I can accept it. Odosedo. Okoa Essa Odosedo. All right.
Yeah, like you read the book, it's like, how do you say all these
Ooh.
things?
I was given a lot more flavor than I needed to. Odosedo.
No, but when we get to Carrion Crow and the complexities that are now manifesting within the Okoa character, who I always kind of read as like a Hillary Clinton type person, went to the war college, but had this kind of very imperialistic idea of diplomacy.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying you feel like that about Okoa?
Yeah, but his characters evolved a lot in this book, right? That like those sort of principles of diplomacy and like trying to do whatever need to do it peacefully, but like it's just peaceful for you and yours, right? Who's it really peaceful for?
Yeah.
And being challenged when he returns to Carrion Crowland and his relationship with his sister Essa, who is now largely seen as the leader of the family.
Yes.
And even amongst his own sort of like councilmen, like his, which are essentially his family members, he has a difference of opinion. And then we cut like more of his own immediate family history is revealed later in the book. But even the way he may have thought of the Adosa Do prior to the convergence,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we definitely it's complex.
Oh yeah, he's definitely swaying in his loyalties constantly.
Yeah.
Like you don't know what you want. But you know, I appreciate it because it's realistic. Even in that militant position that he's in, where he has to defend his sister and his, nation, it's still like he knows to some degree of the history of his people, and that's the thing that kind of it's like black people in the military.
Mm.
You're serving the nation that kind of that basically your ancestors are enslaved were enslaved.
Yeah, and I think the more we learn about the history of Carrion Crow, the more we understand the complicated position that Akoa is in. You know, and how would you, if you were that person, right, learning about this troubled history of your people, but
Uh-huh.
then wanting to maintain peace with the people who essentially colonized you?
Yeah.
Because it was working for your family, even if it wasn't working, you was working for your family as leaders of your community, but even though the broader community isn't feeling it.
But I think at this point in the book, it's revealed that there was more to the death of his
Mother.
mother and father.
It doesn't actually get revealed until, because I'm at chapter 21 where more info comes, and then
Okay.
it gets revealed through Iktan and Shiala's relationship.
But he has his suspicions at
Yeah.
this point, I think, where he's
Because
like,
his cousin had given him a letter from his mother. And then
yeah,
the cousin reemerges. I thought the cousin was going to reemerge in a completely different way, but I just got to that point where they had a conversation. So that's all the way in chapter 21.
yes. Okay, that's a little bit.
All the way to chapter 21. Okay, we're going to close out here.
All right.
Thank y'all for joining in the discussion. If you're watching on the replay,
I
you know,
see some people's comments on the side.
yeah,
But
people
it's
are
just,
commenting from YouTube.
oh, okay.
The Facebook people tend to be a lot more quiet.
Oh,
I
got
think,
it. Okay. Yes, they
yeah,
do.
we're gonna
Okay.
figure this out. But thank y'all for joining. We have another discussion next week. Thank you, Samantha, for joining. I know you don't like being on camera, but for one, you did very cute.
I
I think
don't.
you did great. I don't know why you're so scared of being on camera.
I really just don't know. I'm like, where do I look? I look over here. I look over here. Can I
You know
drink
what?
water?
I mean, my camera's up here, but my computer screen's right here, so it's fine. I'm looking down at you, so like,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
fine.
So
Why y'all be so nervous? I think you did magnificent.
thank you. All right. And this was fun. I really like actually you have me rethinking some of the things that I
Now you
even
have me on my toes with the syllabus. This is like, I'm like, oh boy, Samantha goes deep. I'm like, girl, we were trying to engage in critical dialogue, and you definitely hit that.
Yeah.
All right, you should come do
All
another one.
right. Well,
Don't be too scared.
okay. All right. This wasn't bad. I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but this wasn't bad at all.
See, look, we're tame. We're very tame. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. See y'all next week on part 2 discussion. We'll probably start off on page 35 of the syllabus, quickly hit chapter 6, and work our way through. I think we're going up to chapter 14 next week. We'll see where we land. All right. Thank y'all. And everybody, have a good night. Bye.